Trump and his government is gearing up for his new Space Force, which I prefer to call his Space Farce. Let's break this down a bit. What's in the news with stories on wrestler Kane wins again, your vote is useless, MDMA studies, TSA still sucks, and a fine for having trash in a car. Finally, Statists Gonna State, talking about Defense Distributed and their continuing battle against statists. This episode is brought to you by ZenCash, a cryptocurrency that infuses privacy, anonymity, and security done right. Also brought to you by Free Talk Live, providing you with fresh, pro-liberty content 7 days a week on more than 180 radio stations across the country.
Welcome to The Lava Flow, channeling the flow of information to the libertarian, anarcho-capitalist, voluntarist, and agorist community. Find us at thelavaflow.com. Here's your host, Roger Paxton.
Thank you for joining me this week. From the state that is the birthplace of Luther C. Ladd, the first enlisted soldier to lose his life in the Civil War, this is the show that will bring you the people, places, and events that everyone in the Liberty Rebellion needs to know. You can catch me on Twitter at The Lava Flow Pod. This is episode 100, Space Farce, and it's Tuesday, August 7th, 2018, when there have already been more than 720 people killed by police this year, and the United States debt clock shows us at more than $21,307,300 million in debt. What's wrestling my jimmies this week? You're about to find out. Let's do it to it. Do you want to talk about something beyond ridiculous? Fine. Let's talk about Trump's new Space Force. Now that is ridiculous. The U.S. Defense Department this week will take the first steps to create the Space Force, a new branch of the military ordered up by President Trump, but not yet fully backed by Congress. In coming months, Defense Department leaders plan to stand up 3 of the 4 components of the new Space Force, a new combatant command for space, a new joint agency to buy satellites for the military, and a new warfighting community that draws space operations from all service branches. These sweeping changes, on par with the past decade's establishment of cyber forces, are the part the Pentagon can do without lawmakers' approval. Creating the 4th component, an entirely new branch of the military with services and support functions such as financial management and facilities construction, will require congressional action, though. Defense officials plan to spend the rest of 2018 building a legislative proposal for the authorities necessary to fully establish the Space Force. That would go to Congress early next year as part of the Trump administration's 2020 budget proposal. A draft report for lawmakers developed for execution by Deputy Defense Secretary Patrick Shanahan, the Pentagon's number 2 civilian, says, "The Department of Defense is establishing a space force to protect our economy through deterrence of malicious activities, ensure our space systems meet national security requirements, and provide vital capabilities to joint and coalition forces across the spectrum of conflict. DoD will usher in a new age of space technology and field new systems in order to deter, and if necessary degrade, deny, disrupt, destroy, and manipulate adversary capabilities to protect U.S. interests, assets, and way of life. This new age will unlock growth in the U.S. industrial base, expand the commercial space economy, and strengthen partnerships with our allies." What a crock of shit. The draft report says the Pentagon will, by year's end, establish an 11th Unified Combatant Command, U.S. Space Command. Like U.S. Special Operations Command, which oversees special forces composed of service members and organizations drawn from various service branches, the 4-star Space Command will oversee space forces from across the military. The proposal goes even further than lawmakers demanded in the 2019 National Defense Authorization Act, which orders the Pentagon to create a Space Command under U.S. Strategic Command. The idea of creating a new service-level organization to handle the military's space operations has been contentious, since lawmakers last year proposed to attach a Space Corps to the Air Force, along the lines of the Marine Corps and the Navy. Pentagon leaders, including Trump's own Air Force Secretary, largely opposed that move, but in recent months the president has mulled and then stated his desire for a Space Force. If it becomes reality, it would be the first new branch of the military since the Air Force was born out of the Army Air Corps in 1947. Air Force Secretary Heather Wilson said, "I think the most important thing is to stay focused on the warfighter and maintaining the lethality of the service, no matter how the org chart boxes go." It's all about the ability to fight. If we keep focused on that and not on which boxes move around which place in the Pentagon, then we'll do the right thing for the nation. Fucking Christ. Seriously? It's all about the ability to fight. Wow, that's just what we need, expanding our wars into new territory. Can anyone even begin to imagine what a Space Force will cost you and me? At this point, no one seems to know. There are not even any estimates out there, which is fucking terrifying. But you can bet it would cost at least in hundreds of billions, if not more. This is just what we need, pissing away even more money on an unproven and unnecessary strategy to prop up the U.S. military and increasing their lethality and ability to kill people, mostly civilians if we're honest, all over the world. Brilliant. Look, the United States is $21 trillion in debt, which we talked about earlier in the show. As of now, the U.S. will run a deficit exceeding $1 trillion in the 2018 fiscal year alone. As the government throws the taxpayers deeper into debt, the government will be further pressured to steal even more money from us, productive Americans. Currently, the U.S. is occupying dozens of nations, funneling billions of dollars into maintaining an empire the people don't support, putting our future generations into debt that they will not be able to pay back. This new program will be funded by more stolen tax dollars in order to pursue an empire that will only make the government bigger and stronger. The government's already way too big as it is. The public sector is crowding out the private sector more and more. Look, conservatives campaign like libertarians, calling for reductions in the size of the government. But the moment they take office, they immediately promote bigger and more intrusive government. If Trump actually valued making the government smaller, he would abandon this pipe dream and scale back U.S. military operations around the world immediately. In addition, he would pursue a foreign policy of non-interventionism. That's never going to happen, folks. The fact that the government will take a more active role in space will also crowd out the space private sector, therefore stunting its growth. When the government takes control, they don't look to benefit their people. They look to extend their territorial influence. That's it. When the private sector takes control, they look to the needs of its customers, its consumers, whereas consumers have the opportunity to disassociate from any business that they don't want to do business with anymore. Rather than allow the government to use space as a weapon of war, we should privatize space, encourage more private firms to seek innovation beyond Earth, thus propelling society into the future. Privatize space, because if we don't, the government is going to take over, making us all less safe and less free. Under current government-run technology, the state has the ability to monitor your every move. Do you really want the government to hold a monopoly on humanity's next frontier? In the last century alone, government has killed more than 200 million people in acts of democide, which is defined as the intentional killing of an unarmed or disarmed person by government agents acting in their authoritative capacity and pursuant to government policy or high command. Imagine the damage they could do if they had control beyond Earth. In other words, we can't afford a space farce, financially or otherwise, and we most certainly don't need a space farce. Such an entity can only be used to create more war and to expand tyranny throughout the U.S. empire and the world. If you support the space farce, you cannot reasonably claim to support smaller government. Just say no to this latest farce. Have you subscribed to the Lava Flow on iTunes or any mobile device yet? Then what's wrong with you? Go to thelavaflow.com/subscribe so you don't miss a minute of the show. And while you're subscribing, make sure to leave me a 5-star rating and review the show to help others find our podcast. thelavaflow.com/subscribe.
It's time to shake up your podcast feed, folks, by subscribing to Lions of Liberty, the only libertarian variety show out there. Spend Mondays with me, Mark Claire, as I feature in-depth interviews with great names in the libertarian community and fun roundtable discussions.
Electric Liberty Land with me, Brian McWilliams, every Wednesday, your weekly dose of comedy, culture, and liberty.
And Felony Fridays with me, John Odermatt, where I expose injustice in the broken criminal justice system.
Find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and at lionsofliberty.com.
What's in the news? The news you need to know from a libertarian perspective.
In some interesting news, a libertarian-leaning former World Wrestling Entertainment World Champion Glenn Jacobs, known as Kane to pro wrestling fans worldwide, won the mayoral race in Knox County, Tennessee, running as a Republican. He secured the victory against Democratic nominee Linda Haney by a 2-1 margin. Jacobs said he was initially met with pretty astounding laughter from many within the political circles when he made the decision to run for this office. He said, quote, "If anything, what that did was that made me want it even more, and not for me. Because what they were saying was, he's one of them. He's one of you." According to his website, he ran on a platform based on the policies of former President Ronald Reagan, with a focus on low taxes, education, and job growth for the country. But at least at one point, he was a pretty hardcore libertarian, being a listener and supporter of Free Talk Live for a while and coming to New Hampshire in 2009 to speak at Liberty Forum, one of the 2 yearly libertarian events put on by the Free State Project. He has also had a long and seasoned career as a libertarian writer and activist. In a 2009 open letter to Chuck Norris, he encouraged the on-screen Texas Ranger to back measures to end the Fed, mirroring Ron Paul's denunciations of the Federal Reserve. Jacobs has also been seen wearing a Ron Paul Revolution shirt. Jacobs' byline has appeared on several libertarian and quasi-libertarian websites, including the Future of Freedom Foundation, LouRockwell.com, and Rare. He spoke at the Young Americans for Liberty annual conference in both 2016 and 2017, and he's made several television appearances with the likes of Kennedy and Judge Andrew Napolitano. He also co-founded a pro-market organization called the Tennessee Liberty Alliance. But my question is why, if he is so libertarian supposedly, would he invoke the name of Ronald Reagan, someone who was clearly no libertarian? Look, no one is claiming that Glenn Jacobs is or ever was a voluntarist, of course, but this seems like a bit of a stretch even for a minarchist. Was this just to garner votes from the major conservatives in Knox County, who he already had their votes anyway? And if so, isn't that more than a little bit disingenuous? It seems to me that this will only muddy the term libertarian even further, since the term is being bandied about in relation to Jacobs all over, while he's claiming to be following a Reagan platform. That's not what we need, guys. In Your Vote Counts news, hackers from around the world had the rare opportunity to crack election-style voting machines this weekend in Las Vegas, and they didn't disappoint. After nearly an hour and a half, Karsten Sherman, an associate professor with IT University of Copenhagen, successfully cracked into a voting machine at Las Vegas's DEF CON convention. Sherman penetrated Advanced Voting Solutions' 2000 WinVote machine through its Wi-Fi system. Using a Windows XP exploit from 2003, he was able to remotely access the machine. Remotely. Voting technology was thrust into the political spotlight when election systems in several states were targeted by Russian cyber attacks. The convention purchased more than 30 voting machines for the event, although organizers didn't specify how many models those units represented. Brian Knopf, director of security researcher for Newellstar, said, "The exposure of those devices to the people who do bug bounties or actually look at these kinds of devices has been fairly limited. And so DEF CON is a great opportunity for those of us who track hardware and firmware to look to these kinds of devices and really answer that question. Are they hackable?" Synac, a San Francisco security platform, discovered serious flaws with the WinVote machine months ahead of this weekend's convention. The team simply plugged in a mouse and keyboard and bypassed the voting software by clicking, I shit you not, Control-Alt-Delete. Synac co-founder Jay Kaplan said, "It's really just a matter of plugging your USB drive in for 5 seconds and the thing's completely compromised at that point, to the point where you can get remote access. It's very simple." The Synac team also cracked the machine from a mobile application by installing a remote desktop program to it. In one case study, Synac found a Virginia poll worker hacked their own machines to play Minesweeper. Anne-Marie Huang, a Synac intern, told CNET that changing votes can be as simple as updating a Microsoft Excel document. Look, keep voting, folks, seriously, because as you can clearly see, your vote counts. One cryptocurrency project that I'm most excited about right now is ZenCash, with privacy, anonymity, and security done right. You can read all about ZenCash at thelavaflow.com/zen. Now look, I've read a ton of white papers on crypto, and this is the first one I've read that mentioned voluntary and voluntarist not once but 7 times. These are our people. And they are on the right track to mix great technology, excellent marketing, and awesome uses for their product. These guys get it, and they understand what crypto is all about. Now, this is a project, guys, that I believe in 100%. So much so that I have staked some of my own Zen to run a secure node on their network. So don't miss out on checking out this awesome project at thelavaflow.com/Zen. In some good news, MDMA, which was banned by the Drug Enforcement Administration in 1985, could be available by prescription as soon as 2021. The rehabilitation of MDMA, aka ecstasy or Molly, is directly related to the rehabilitation of veterans who participated in a study that confirmed the drug's potential as a catalyst for catharsis. Nicholas Blackstone, a Marine veteran who served in Iraq, described his experience with MDMA-assisted psychotherapy. I was finally able to process all the dark stuff that happened. I was able to forgive myself. It was like a clean sweep. The trial was sponsored by the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, MAPS, and reported on May 1st in the Lancet Psychiatry. It involved 22 military veterans, 3 firefighters, and 1 police officer, all of whom had been diagnosed with chronic post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, resulting from traumatic experience during their service. The researchers randomly assigned the participants to receive 30, 75, or 125 milligrams of MDMA in conjunction with 2 psychotherapy sessions separated by about a month. The lowest dose served as an active placebo. Neither the researchers nor the subjects knew who was receiving which amount. The results were striking. Average scores on the clinically administered PTSD scale, CAPS, which indicates symptom severity, fell by 71% in the medium-dose group and 49% in the high-dose group, compared to 13% in the low-dose group. 68% of the medium and high-dose subjects no longer met the diagnostic criteria for PTSD, compared to 29% of the low-dose subjects. When people in the control group were given the opportunity to use higher doses of MDMA, they saw additional progress. 1 year after the MDMA sessions, the mean CAPS score for all subjects was 39, down from 87 at the beginning of the study. The cutoff for a PTSD diagnosis is 50. These large, persistent improvements reinforce the results of an earlier MAP-sponsored study that provided MDMA-assisted psychotherapy to crime victims. The next step is Phase 3 clinical trials, which are the last stage before the Food and Drug Administration decides whether to approve the drug as a treatment for PTSD. Last August, the FDA streamlined that process by deeming MDA a breakthrough technology, meaning it may demonstrate substantial improvement over current options. Now, these results are pretty significant and pretty striking, but you can bet that no one at the FDA is taking the blame for this drug being a Schedule I drug since 1986. According to the DEA website, Schedule I drugs, substances, or chemicals are defined as drugs with no currently accepted medical use and a high potential for abuse. Some examples of Schedule I drugs are heroin, LSD, marijuana, ecstasy, methaqualone, and peyote. Can you imagine where we could be today with research had this drug not been added as a highly dangerous drug 30-some-odd years ago and made illegal for any use? And if the FDA is wrong about MDMA, who's to say they aren't wrong about all the other drugs listed as Schedule I? Hell, I guarantee you they're wrong about more of them. In TSA news, the U.S. Transportation Security Administration, TSA, is facing criticism for secretly tracking Americans on flights. The Quiet Skies program reportedly uses an unknown algorithm to flag flyers without any criminal record for surveillance on domestic flights, without any criminal record. Air marshals tasked with carrying out surveillance have pushed back against the program. TSA denies any racial profiling and says it's a practical method. Under Quiet Skies, federal air marshals have been shadowing travelers on their flights and reporting any suspicious behavior to TSA. These travelers, who are in some cases American citizens, are not part of terrorist screening databases, nor are they suspected of any wrongdoings. Travelers are not notified when they've been added to the Quiet Skies list, which reportedly contains fewer than 50 people, supposedly. The program had been a previously undisclosed TSA operation, but has been in place since 2010. But how are people put on the list? That's always the question. The program first uses an algorithm to analyze a passenger's travel pattern and any potential affiliations. Officials then look at the data and determine whether the passenger should be observed by air marshals. According to TSA internal documents published by the Boston Globe, air marshals observe passengers for a number of behaviors, including excessive fidgeting, excessive sweating, strong body odor, cold penetrating stare, wide open staring eyes, face touching, how much they sleep during a flight, using a smartphone, recent loss or gain of weight, and many others. Look, I shit you not. I mean, before I moved to New Hampshire, I was traveling a lot for work, up to 3 times a month for 5 years. I can guarantee that during many of those flights, I met the vast majority of these criteria. Hell, at one point, I even lost 50 pounds while I was working at that company. Look, this is just ridiculous and shows how completely useless the TSA truly is. One of the largest reaching liberty programs today is Free Talk Live, with a 3-hour radio program 7 nights a week on more than 180 radio stations across the country. They are so influential on talk radio that they are the number 27 radio program in the country, according to Talkers Magazine. They also have a daily podcast that's been voted Best Political Podcast 5 times by podcastawards.com. The hosts of Free Talk Live are street preachers for the ideas of liberty. They take the message of peace, liberty, and cryptocurrency to the masses on the radio, where they are not preaching to the choir. You can listen via podcast or live via audio streaming or the Twitch or YouTube channels at freetalklive.com. I listen to their podcast myself every single morning when I get up to get a fresh perspective on news and very, very strong libertarian perspectives. Make sure to add them to your feed at freetalklive.com. In across-the-pond rubbish news, roofer Stuart Gosling, 43, has been hit with a 300-pound fine after sandwich wrappers and crisp packets were found inside his work van. Waltham Forest council workers told Mr. Gosling he was breaking the law for carrying his rubbish without permission when they carried out spot checks in East London. Mr. Gosling has tried to appeal the fine but has been told he will end up in court if he doesn't pay the penalty issued at the roadside. He said, "It's so infuriating. The working-class man gets penalized for going to work, basically." He also said, "There was just a bag of rubbish, bottles, crisp packets, newspaper, and sandwich wrappers. What gets me is the lack of common sense. It's a lot of money for one bag of rubbish." The roofing contractor was driving through Shingford in northeast London when he was pulled over by council workers. They searched his vehicle before asking him if he had a waste carrier's license, which is required by any business that transports commercial refuse. A Waltham Forest Council spokesman said, "The waste in this case was being transported in a commercial refuse bag in the trader's vehicle. Regardless of what the items are, if waste is being stored in a commercial refuse bag in a trader's van, it is necessary that they have a valid waste carrier's license." What the actual fuck? I mean, so a guy decides to clean his van up a bit from all of his personal trash, grabs a trash bag that he has in the van, which just happens to be a commercial waste trash bag, which is apparently regulated as fuck, and now he's committed a crime? I mean, this is the violence of government, folks. I wonder what's going to happen if he refuses to pay this fine. I bet it wouldn't end peacefully. Over some empty chip bags and newspapers. Exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a per episode donation of as little as $1 an episode, or use Bitcoin. Get exclusive content, rewards, and help the Lava Flow become fiscally neutral while providing you more content. thelavaflow.com/support.
This is Chris Spangle, and I am the host of We Are Libertarians, which you can find in iTunes, Google Play, or at wearelibertarians.com. We are a podcast that brings you all of the irreverence that modern politics deserves by examining current events from a libertarian perspective. So please, check us out at wearelibertarians.com.
Statists Gonna State.
Statists all over the country are going nuts over Defense Distributed's downloadable digital blueprints for guns, and I'm so glad to see it. Last week, Defense Distributed, the Texas nonprofit providing online schematics for producing firearms with a 3D printer, agreed to temporarily block Pennsylvania internet users from its website in an emergency hearing. The move followed threats of legal action from Pennsylvania's Attorney General Josh Shapiro. Shapiro said on Twitter, "These downloadable firearms were just about to be widely available online. It's an existential threat to our state, and we stepped in to stop it. The site is and will remain dark throughout Pennsylvania." According to Shapiro's office, more than 1,000 people had already downloaded the instructions for building an AR-15 before this block went into place. I personally would imagine it was quite a few more than that, through torrents or other locations, but whatever. Speaking of, there's no way that the state of Pennsylvania can truly effectively block these files. As long as the files are on the internet, on torrent sites, or on the web in any form, anyone can get to them from anywhere, even inside Pennsylvania. All it takes is a torrent program or a VPN program to easily bypass any restrictions. Hell, I personally am seeding the files from my house as a torrent file, as are thousands of others. These files are out there, folks. There's no stopping them. As a matter of fact, here's a clip from CBS of Cody Wilson saying essentially the same thing.
What makes you comfortable with a world where people can pump out guns in their garage anytime they want to?
What's going to make me comfortable is when people stop coming in this office and acting like there's a debate about it. The debate is over. The guns are downloadable. The files are in the public domain. You cannot take them back. You can adjust your politics to this reality. You will not ask me to adjust mine.
Goddamned right. Right on, Cody. And Cody is serious about this. Apparently, Cody Wilson has a tombstone outside of his office that is inscribed with the words American Gun Control. Yep, he's pretty fucking serious. But it's not just Pennsylvania acting against Defense Distributed's supposed First Amendment right. A federal judge issued a temporary restraining order last week blocking the online release of plans for 3D printed guns hours before the blueprints were set to become available. The order comes in response to a lawsuit from 8 Democratic attorneys general seeking to block the Trump administration from allowing access to the downloadable plans. But again, the files had been available for days prior to this ruling, and they are out there now with no ability to pull them back, ever. New York Attorney General Barbara Underwood said, "In a major victory for common sense and public safety, a federal judge just granted our request for a national temporary restraining order, blocking the Trump administration from allowing the distribution of materials to easily 3D print guns. As we argued in the suit we filed yesterday, it is simply crazy to give criminals the tools to build untraceable, undetectable 3D printed guns at the touch of a button. Yet that's exactly what the Trump administration decided to allow." Josh Blackman, a lawyer who represents Cody Wilson, the founder of the nonprofit that planned to post the instructions, said the restraining order violates protected First Amendment rights. Blackman said, "We were disappointed in the ruling and view it as a massive prior restraint of free speech." U.S. District Court Judge Robert S. Lasnik will hold a hearing on August 10th to determine whether the order should be made permanent. I would not be surprised at all if the order is made permanent. But again, it doesn't matter anymore, and that's what they just don't get. The files are in the wild. There's no reining them back in now. Look, I applaud Cody Wilson and Defense Distributed for allowing crosshairs to be put on their backs to bring this to the world. This is huge, and this means that the government will never be able to truly stop gun ownership, as if they could even before this happened, as evidenced by the murder rate in cities around the country with strict gun control laws. And as a side note, one cool thing about living in New Hampshire is my ability to attend events like Liberty Forum and PorcFest. This year at Liberty Forum, Cody Wilson himself will be a keynote speaker. If you want to see him speak on all of this stuff, make sure to get your tickets to New Hampshire Liberty Forum at nhlibertyforum.com. The event is the weekend of February 7th through the 9th next year, and tickets start at $119 right now for the early bird special. I hope to see all you guys there. Thank you for listening to the show this week. As always, I need to thank my favorite water park partner, Jessica, for her help with the show. For the show notes to this episode, where I put links to other information that's been on the show, go to thelavaflow.com/100. I have no new supporters this week. Now, as you guys notice, this is my 100th episode, and I was kind of thinking of doing something really special for this show, but I decided, what's the point? I mean, it's just another show. It's no different than any other week. However, I do want to take a moment and thank all of my supporters on this special 100th episode. Look, as you guys all know, I couldn't do this without you. You are my rock. Thank you all so much. Here's a really quick list of all of my supporters in no certain order. Trevor D., Alan B., Drew D., Daryl P., BJ M., Kathleen W., David B., David J., Dustin K., David C., Gary B., Monty D., Alex S., Ross D., Vince P., Paul R., Vignesh R., Terry T., Brian B., Carl W., Troy S., Link W, Chris R, Benjamin W, John B, Peter P, Shay L, Christopher H, RS Dot, Drake L, KDT, Mark C, Brian M, Jason C, Howie S, Ryan P, Brianna M, Dave A, Jim K, Daniel R, Jason R, Brian S, Phil S, Stephanie P, Jason M, Rusad E, John B, Bronson R, Kat M, Matt C, Justin S, Tyler R, Curmudgeon W, Cody Y, Andrew B, Derek S, Nicholas B, Robert C, Ivan M, Matt B, Edward H, Segis B, Charles L, Adam, Jacob L, Joe R, Ted S, Jim J, Mike Dunn, Chris R, William P, Craig D, Mark W, Scott M, Paul O, Troy S, Chad J, and the Sounds Like Liberty podcast. Thank you all so much. And thanks to all of these guys, all of my awesome supporters, I am at $290 per episode, or 58% of the way towards my next goal of $500 per episode. Thanks for all the support, guys. And remember, when I hit this next goal, I will be upping the content I bring you from half an hour per week to a full hour. I know you want more content from me, and I want to give it to you, so add your pledge today to help me bring you twice the lava flow that you're getting today. So exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a per episode donation of as little as $1 an episode using Federal Reserve notes through Patreon or Bitcoin through Coinbase. I want to be able to bring you more content soon, so make sure to add your donation today to help make that happen. thelavaflow.com/support. I also have a new Apple Podcast review this week. Dutch Jimbo said, "Wow, blown away from the first episode." Short and sweet, Jimbo. Thank you so much for that awesome review. As of today, I have 165 iTunes ratings, with 157 of those being 5-star, 3 being 4-star, 3 being 3 stars, 1 being 2 stars, and 1 of those being a 1-star. Not bad at all. Thank you all so much for helping to rate and review my show. So if you guys have a minute and you want to hear your review on the show, please go to thelavaflow.com/Apple and leave me a rating and a review. All the cool kids are doing it. Thank you to everyone who's left me a rating and a review so far. You guys rock. To all of you who haven't, can you guys help me out and go leave a review for me? Go to thelavaflow.com/Apple to do that now. Until next time, keep striking the root.
Thank you for listening to The Lava Flow at thelavaflow.com. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe now at thelavaflow.com/subscribe. This has been a Pax Libertas Productions podcast.